Hello, good morning, everybody. My name is C. Radhakrishna. I am working as senior lecturer in chemistry at Government Polytechnic College, Gadwal. We have been doing corrosion, the chapter corrosion. Okay, we have seen the definition of corrosion. We have seen the factors affecting the rate of corrosion. We have learned about the factors affecting rate of corrosion. We have learned about the effects of corrosion, what happens to the due to corrosion. Okay, so today let us try to learn a chapter. Let us start a new chapter. Okay, that is polymers. Okay, so before going for polymers, let's try to recall what we have learned in the corrosion. Okay, we have seen the definition of corrosion, we have seen the effects of corrosion, and we have seen the factors affecting rate of corrosion, factors based on the metal like reactivity of the metal, the position of the metal in the electrochemical series, the alloying of the metal, the grain size of the metal, the corruption of the solubility of corrosion products in the surrounding medium, and also we have seen certain environmental factors like effect of temperature on the rate of corrosion, effect of humidity on the rate of corrosion, pH of the surroundings on the rate of corrosion, as well as the presence of reactive gases in and around the metal, which will cause corrosion. All these things we have learned under the topic the factors influencing the rate of corrosion, whether the corrosion happens in an accelerated manner or in a slow manner. Okay, that is about the rate of factors influencing the rate of corrosion. Then we have seen the electrochemical theory of corrosion. It is proposed by Whitney. This theory states that corrosion is due to chemical attack, electrochemical attack of surrounding environment on the metal, which leads to formation of galvanic cells. Okay, which leads to the formation of galvanic cells, and always the anodic metal or anodic region of the metal starts corroding. Okay, this is what the electrochemical theory states, proposed by Whitney. It explains the formation of these galvanic cells, okay, in three ways. That is the formation of composition cells, the formation of stress cells, and the formation of concentration cells, which is also called as formation of differential aeration cells. Okay, so in the composition cells, whenever two metals are in contact with each other in the presence of some conducting medium, the metal which is more reactive or which is higher in the electrochemical series turns into anode and undergoes corrosion, and the other metal which is lower in the electrochemical series or the metal which is less reactive, okay, it will not turns into cathode and it is spared from the corrosion. That's how whenever two different metals are in contact with each other in the presence of conducting medium, a composition cell is set up. Next is stress cells. Different parts of the same metal may be endowed with different amounts of stress and strain. We consider that a nail, in the case of nail, the head and tip are more stress parts, the middle part is less stress part. The parts with more stresses are endowed with more energy or higher energy, and the parts with less stress are endowed with less energy or lower energy. They are endowed with less stress or lower energy. Okay, so less stress or lower energy. So this the more parts with more energy, with higher stress and more energy, they turn into anode, and the parts with less energy or lower energy and lower stress, they turn into cathode. In the presence of conducting medium, which is always present by default, okay, the anodic part undergoes corrosion. Okay, this is how stress cells are formed. Okay, next concentration cells or differential aeration cells. These cells are formed when different parts of metal are exposed to different amounts of oxygen or different amounts of air. Okay, different parts of metal are exposed to differing amounts of air. Okay, so this leads to the the more oxygenated part turns into cathode and less oxygenated part becomes more reactive relatively and turns into anode, because oxygen passivates the metal. So the part with the higher oxygen concentration is passivated or deactivated, turns into cathode, and the part with the lesser oxygen concentration around it is relatively more reactive and turns into anode, and this part undergoes corrosion. Okay, this is the briefly the explanation of electrochemical theory of corrosion. Then we went for the methods of control of corrosion. Okay, huge quantities of metals, especially the structural material which we use for most of the purposes, the iron. Nearly 20% of iron is being lost every year. 20% of newly produced iron, freshly produced iron, is being used only to replace the iron that is lost by rusting or corrosion. So it's a huge loss to the economy and to the country at large and to the world at large. So we must think of methods of controlling corrosion. Okay, in the methods of controlling corrosion, we can see, because corrosion happens because of interaction between metal and its surroundings. Okay, it happens between interaction between metal and its surroundings. So this interaction between metal and its surroundings. So to stop corrosion, you can either change the properties of the metal, or you can change the properties of the surrounding environment. Okay, or prevent contact between them. So to change the properties of the metal, okay, impurities, the presence of impurities must be decreased. The percentage of impurities in the metal should be decreased. Metals can be, the grain size of the metal should be used larger. Okay, and the metals can be alloyed. Okay, metals can be alloyed. Alloying changes the properties of the metal. So iron on alloying turns into stainless steel, which will not undergo corrosion, as we all know. Okay, and change of the environmental factors involves decrease of humidity, decrease of harmful gases around the metal. Okay, harmful gases are reactive gases like oxygen, carbon dioxide, oxides of sulfur, etc. around the metal, which enhance the rate of corrosion or which cause corrosion. And changing the pH of the surroundings from acidic to neutral or basic. Okay, if acidic environment is there, it can be neutralized by addition of sodium bicarbonate, sodium carbonate, ammonia, etc. Okay, so because neutral pH or alkaline pH will not cause corrosion, but acidic pH increase the rate of corrosion or causes corrosion. So environmental, like this, environmental factors can also be used, changed. And similarly, the environment can be cut off from coming into contact with the metal surface by applying certain protective coatings to the metallic surface. Okay, these protective coatings, they act as a barrier. Okay, they act as a physical barrier, and they sit between on the metallic surface and prevent the contact of surrounding environment on the metal. Okay, prevent the contact of surrounding environment to the metal. Okay, so these protective coatings are applied to the metallic surface. Okay, these protective coatings can be categorized into three types, namely metallic coatings, inorganic coatings, and organic coatings. Okay, depending upon the metal used for coating. Okay, the metallic coatings are of two types, anodic coatings and cathodic coatings. If the base metal object to be protected is coated with another metal which is higher in the electrochemical series, okay, that forms anode, the coated metal forms anode and base metal forms cathode. Such coatings are called anodic coatings. Example is coating of iron with the zinc. Zinc is higher in the electrochemical series than the iron. Okay. Next is cathodic coatings. Here the base metal object is coated with in the metal which is lower in the electrochemical series than the base metal. So the base metal turns into anode and coated metal turns into cathode. Because of this, these coatings are called cathodic coatings. Example is coating of tin on the iron object, iron metal. Okay. Next, inorganic coatings. We can give three types of inorganic coatings. Apply three types of inorganic coatings to the metal. They are namely phosphate coatings, okay, chromate coatings and oxide coatings. In the case of oxide coatings, the thickness of oxide coating, oxide layer can be increased by means of making the metal as a cathode of an electrolytic cell and passing electricity. Okay. And chromate coatings and phosphate coatings are applied by dipping the metal in suitable solutions of phosphates and chromates. Okay. That's next coming organic coatings. Organic coatings can be further categorized into there are many types of organic coatings. Organic coating means coating with the carbon compounds, coating a metal with a carbon compound. Okay, that's called as they are called as organic coatings. These organic coatings are of different types like varnishes, paints, lacquers, emulsions, etc. All these are applied to the metallic surface. They form an unbroken chain, unbroken film, okay, continuous and unbroken non-porous film on the metallic surface, and it dries quickly. Okay, it dries quickly and offers long-lasting protection. Better than this is coating of plastic, coating of metals with the plastic like PVC, polythene, polyurethane, etc. This coating of with plastics offers long-lasting protection under very much trying conditions. Okay, these are some of the protective coatings that we apply to the metal surface to prevent the contact of surrounding environment with the metal. Okay, then we have a special type of protection we have seen, that is called as cathodic protection. In this method, the metal object to be protected is deliberately turned. It is deliberately turned into cathode. Okay. Okay. So because cathode is will not undergo corrosion, only anodic material undergoes corrosion and cathode will not undergo corrosion. So in this process, in the cathodic method, the metal object to be protected from corrosion is turned into, okay, a cathode deliberately. Okay, how it is done we will see. Okay, so it is turned into a cathode, that much you know. Okay, this can be achieved, a metal object can be turned into a cathode by two ways. Okay, one is sacrificial anode method. In this method, the metal object to be protected, something like iron rails or the underground iron pipeline. Okay, it is connected with another metal which is superior, another more reactive metal like which is superior in the electrochemical series, higher in the electrochemical series than iron metal. Usually used metals are, okay, magnesium, zinc, aluminum, etc. They are more reactive than iron. They find they are higher than the iron in the electrochemical series. Okay, so in practice what is done is iron pipeline, buried underground iron pipeline is connected with a plate, magnesium plate, okay, through an insulated wire. Magnesium being higher in the electrochemical series turns into anode and undergoes corrosion, whereas the iron pipeline, buried under pipeline, is protected from corrosion. These magnesium plates are connected throughout the length of iron pipeline at different places. Okay, and since the magnesium undergoes corrosion and the magnesium is turned last, these magnesium plates are replaced from time to time to protect underground iron pipeline. The magnesium plates are replaced from time to time. Okay, this is how since we are sacrificing the anodic metal for the protection of our underground iron pipeline or our object, metal iron object. Okay, this method is called as a sacrificial anode method. The next is next way of changing cathode protection is impressed voltage method. In this method, okay, the metal corrosive current is nullified. Okay, corrosive current is nullified by applying slightly higher voltage in opposite direction. Okay, that is the principle involved here in this process, in this method. Okay, in practice, what is done is the underground iron pipeline which is to be protected is connected to a external EMF, negative terminal of external EMF, and anode of the EMF is external EMF battery is connected to a graphite, okay, a graphite anode which is buried in a landfill filled with gypsum, etc., gypsum or ferrous sulfite, etc. To this, the function of this landfill filled with the gypsum or ferrous sulfite, etc., is to increase the electric contact of the graphite with to the surrounding soil. Okay, it is also buried. Okay, so here the iron pipeline is turned into cathode and it is protected from corrosion, and the graphite anode is corroded, undergoes corrosion. Okay, and this graphite is piece of graphite is this graphite anodic graphite is replaced from time to time. Okay, corroded graphite piece is removed and fresh it is replaced with a fresh graphite piece. Okay, this impressed voltage method is used for the protection to offer long-term protection of large structures like cell phone towers, telephone towers, iron tanks, iron cool boxes, rails, etc. Okay, this is about this we have tried to recapitulate. Okay, whatever we have learned in the chapter corrosion. Now we'll move on to the polymers. Okay, we use polymers day in and day out. Okay, let us define polymerization. Let us see, there are two types of polymerizations: addition polymerization, condensation polymerization. Okay, let us see the addition polymerization definition, how it happens, and also let us see a few examples of addition polymerization. Okay, a few examples for addition polymerization. Okay, see, you can see the diagram. Okay, this blue pipeline is used, that pipe is used for pump connection. Municipal lines will go and municipal pipes are laid near our houses, along the road. From those, our domestic pipelines are connected with these blue pipelines. These tanks, black tanks, those tanks you must have seen, we use them for overhead tanks, and variety of plastic articles like buckets, stools, chairs, okay, etc., trays, etc., we use day in and day out. These are all nothing but all plastics are polymers. All polymers may not be plastics, but all polymers are all plastics are polymers only. These are all these plastics are examples of okay, all these plastics are examples of polymers. Okay, all these items shown are plastics. Plastic is any material capable of changing its shape. Okay, We'll discuss plastics again in this chapter. Don't worry about plastics now. We have got separate topic of plastics in this chapter, polymers. Okay, the shape of the plastics can be changed. Shapes of these plastics can be changed by applying pressure, okay, heat, solvents, etc. Plastics are made up of polymers. Plastics are nothing, all plastics are polymers only. Reverse is not true, all polymers are not plastics, but all plastics are nothing but polymers. Okay, all plastics are polymers. Okay, poly is a Greek word. Okay, means many. Poly means many. It's a Greek word. In the Greek language itself, mer means part. So literally, polymer in Greek means a molecule or a substance having many parts. Okay, so polymers are having many parts joined together. They are very large molecules. They are made up of all the polymers. Polymer is a very huge molecule which is formed by the repeated joining of a large number of small molecules. Okay, polymers are formed by repeated joining of a large number of small molecules called monomers. These monomers join together, attach one to one another, and form into a large molecule. Okay, for example, you can take a chain, huge chain, very long chain. Okay, theoretically speaking, you can have a chain from one city to another city also, that much length also. A chain is formed by joining links together. Chain will have links, metallic links. These links are joined together to form a large chain. Okay, to form a large chain. Okay, the chain can be compared to that of a polymer, the whole chain, and individual links which are joined together to form this chain, they can be called as monomers. So the large number of small molecules called monomers joined together to give rise to a large molecule called polymer. Usually the number of monomers in a typical polymer far exceeds 10,000 units. Okay, more than 10,000 units of small molecules of monomers will join together to form a polymer. Okay, to form a polymer. So polymer is formed by repeated joining of many monomers. The molecular weight range from 5,000 units to 2 lakh units or even more. Okay, so the number of monomers which are joining together to give rise to a polymer is called as a degree of polymerization. Okay, it's called as a degree of the number of monomers joining together to form a polymer is called as a degree of polymerization. Okay, this degree of polymerization varies from one polymer to another polymer. Usually the addition polymers are thermoplastics. They are called as the degree of polymerization is very high, whereas in another category of polymers, that is thermosetting polymers, the degree of polymerization is relatively lower. Okay, the number of monomer units in a polymer is called as which join together. Okay, the number of monomers which join together to give rise to or to form a large molecule called polymer. Okay, this number is called as the degree of polymerization. Okay, polymers you can have different polymers can be classified into natural polymers and synthetic polymers. Okay, natural polymers and synthetic polymers. In biology, you must have come across. Okay, all living organisms, bodies are synthesized, are made up of small repeating units called what are they? What are the animals' bodies made up of? They are built up of proteins. Proteins are the structural units which make the bodies of all the living organisms in our body. All the tissues, all the organs are made up of proteins only. Proteins are the building blocks of living organisms. These proteins are natural polymers. They are natural polymers. They are polymer. These are made by small monomers called amino acids. A large number of amino acids join together, okay, come together, join together to give rise to a huge polymer called protein. Okay, so different proteins contain the amino acids in different sequences. Okay, so depending on the purpose of the which type of organ they are building, okay, different types of monomer proteins are used to build these different types of proteins. Different sequences of amino acids joined together. Okay, it is all programmed in the body. It's a beautiful the body is a beautiful functional unit. It's a wonderful machine which works very perfectly. Okay, anyway, the polymers are classified as natural polymers and synthetic polymers. Okay, the proteins are natural polymers with which all our bodies are made up of. Okay, other examples of natural polymers are glucose. Glucose is made from the monomer unit called cellulose. Cellulose is the polymer. The monomer of cellulose is glucose. Glucose is the monomer. These glucoses join together to give rise to cellulose. Likewise, starch is also a polymer. Okay, starch is a polymer of again glucose. Glucose undergoes formation to give rise to both cellulose as well as starch. The difference between the cellulose and starch is okay, in the cellulose glucose units are bound by what we call as beta linkages. Okay, and in the starch the cellulose units are bound by or connected together by alpha linkages. Our human bodies and many human bodies can digest, can break the alpha linkages. Okay, so we don't we can digest starch, but the enzymes present in our body, okay, the enzymes present in our bodies cannot digest the beta linkages of cellulose. That is why we fail to digest, we cannot digest cellulose. That is why the cellulose, okay, cellulose is available for the animals to eat. Cattle is able to have the cellulosic materials like grass. They are able to eat and digest. Okay, purest form of cotton is one of the purest form of cellulose. The natural source of starch are all the food grains, wheat flour, rice flour, maize flour, all of them are starches. Starch is nothing but carbohydrates. And proteins are present in the skin, hair, silk. All our bodies are made up of proteins only. Rubber is also another example for natural polymer. Okay, we have got both synthetic rubbers and natural rubbers nowadays, but originally we had only the natural rubber. This natural rubber is procured from the latex. That is, when certain plants are hurt, they secrete white liquid. This white liquid is called as commonly called as milk, but scientifically it's called as latex. This latex contains rubber hydrocarbon. Okay, we'll discuss about the extraction of rubber as well as structure of rubber and vulcanization of rubber. Okay, and applications of this vulcanized rubber. All these things a little ahead in this very chapter. Okay, then you have these are all the examples of natural polymers. cellulose, starch, proteins, natural rubber, all these are examples of your natural polymers. Whereas the examples of synthetic polymers are many thousands of synthetic polymers are there or being manufactured, okay, in the industry. For some examples are polyesters. Terling is terling cloth, you must have heard about. Terling is an example of a polyester. And polyamides, nylon is an example of polyamide. And your natural proteins are also polyamides only. Proteins in the proteins, amino acids are linked together by CONH group. This linkage is called amide linkage. It's called as amide linkage. Amide linkages, amides link these proteins. Then you have polyvinyls, PVC, acrylics, etc. Then polyurethanes. Okay, all these are examples of synthetic polymers. They have got different functional groups joined together, different linkages, and all these things will examine a little later. So basically a polymer is a very huge molecule or large molecule formed by a repeated joining of a large number of small molecules, repeated joining of a large number of small molecules called monomers, repeated joining of a large number of small molecules called monomers. These monomers give rise to, okay, join together in large numbers to form the polymers, and the polymers can be divided into natural polymers which occur in nature, okay, and the synthetic polymers which are manufactured in the laboratory. We have seen the examples for the both of these, okay. Now let us see what polymerization is. A polymerization is a reaction in which a large number of small molecules called monomers join together repeatedly to form a very large molecule, okay, which is called as a polymer. So a polymerization is a chemical reaction, okay. Basically it's a chemical reaction in which a large number of small molecules called monomers, these are called monomers, okay, they join together with one another to form a long chain or large mass of a polymer, long chain or a large mass of a huge molecule, okay, with a huge molecule. This molecule is called a polymer, okay. So monomer is the smallest repeating unit, okay. Monomer is the smallest repeating unit which join together in huge large numbers, okay, in large numbers to give rise to a single large molecule which is called as a polymer, okay. If two monomers units join, you will get a dimer, okay. If three monomers, two is called as di, okay, so a dimer you get. If three monomer units join together, you get a trimer. Three monomers units give rise to a trimer, and a large number of monomer units join together, to form a polymer. Large number of monomers give rise to a polymer, okay. The process of joining many monomer units is called as polymerization. I have just given you a full definition of polymerization, okay. So a polymerization is a chemical reaction in which a large number of small molecules called monomers join together repeatedly to give rise to a large molecule, okay, large molecule called polymer, okay. Such a reaction is called as a polymerization. Such a reaction is called as a polymerization reaction, okay. Monomers of two types depending upon whether they are unsaturated or saturated, okay. Unsaturated monomers Unsaturated monomers are those monomers having a double bond or triple bond between the carbon atoms. Having a double bond or triple bond between the carbon atoms, they are called as unsaturated monomers. Okay. See, we take example of only organic molecules because almost all the polymers are of organic in nature. They are carbon compounds only, all synthetic polymers. Most of them, 99% and above of them are organic polymers made up of carbon compounds. So we take for monomers and for polymers also we take examples of organic molecules only, organic compounds only. So unsaturated monomers are those monomers which have a double bond or a triple bond between carbon atoms. C double bond C or C triple bond C. For example, is ethylene. In the ethylene, the formula is C2H4. It has got a double bond between two carbon atoms. Whenever you have a double bond or triple bond between carbon atoms, one will be a sigma bond, very strong bond, which will not break. The other will be a weak bond called pi bond, which can be broken easily. Okay. So in the ethylene, you have one sigma bond and one pi bond between the two carbon atoms. Okay. Likewise, another example is if one hydrogen atom in the ethylene molecule is replaced by a chlorine atom. Okay. You get a vinyl chloride. You get a vinyl chloride. This vinyl chloride is C2H2, CH2, CHCl. This is also an example of okay, double bond C double bond C, alkene derivative. Okay. Likewise, you can also have a triple bond C triple bond C. Example is acetylene. Okay. Example is acetylene. Here the one is sigma bond, other two are pi bonds. Okay. So monomers are of two types. One is unsaturated monomers having double bond or triple bonds like alkenes and alkynes, and then you have another type of monomers, okay, saturated monomers with reactive, highly reactive functional groups, highly reactive functional groups. Okay, it is these functional groups actually these functional groups participate in the chemical reactions. Okay, these functional groups participate in the chemical reactions. The functional monomers examples are adipic acid. Okay, adipic acid, it's a C6 system. Okay, 1,6 hexane, 1,6 dioic acid. Its IUPAC name is hexane 1,6 dioic acid, which means there are 6 carbons in the adipic acid, and at the both terminals you have COOH groups. Okay, the formula is given COOH, CH2 taken 4 times, COOH, that is adipic acid. Then ethylene glycol. Glycols are the compounds containing 2 hydroxyl groups. Ethylene means it has 2 carbon atoms joined together in the molecule, that is called ethylene. Okay, ethylene glycol means okay, 2 carbon atoms having each attached to one OH group. Okay, so ethylene glycol formula is okay, ethylene glycol formula is CH2OH and CH2OH. Okay, that is ethylene glycol. Okay, glycols are compounds having 2 hydroxyl groups on the adjacent carbon atoms. Okay, on the adjacent carbon atoms. Okay, so ethylene glycol, its IUPAC name is 1,2 dihydroxyethane. Okay, then urea. Urea is it has also 2 reactive functional groups, NH2 groups here. 2 NH2 groups are joined to a C double bond O keto group. This is urea. Okay, so in the adipic acid you have 2 reactive carboxylic functional groups. In the ethylene glycol you have 2 reactive hydroxyl functional groups. In the case of example of urea, you have 2 reactive amino groups. NH2 group is called as amino group, OH group is called hydroxyl group, whereas COH group is called carboxylic group. Okay. we have seen three different examples of three different reactive functional groups, and now go for the polymerization. A polymerization, as I mentioned to you, is a chemical reaction in which large number of monomers come to join together, okay, to give rise to a large molecule called polymer. Large number of small molecules called monomers come and join together repeatedly to form a large number of molecule called polymer. Okay, this polymerization is of two types. One is addition polymerization, the other is condensation polymerization. In the case of addition polymerization, unsaturated monomers participate. Okay, in the first, let's take up addition polymerization. Here, unsaturated monomers undergo addition polymerization. Okay, here during the polymerization, no atom or molecule is eliminated. Okay, the characteristic is unsaturated monomers participate in this addition polymerization. Okay, and during the polymerization there is no loss of any matter, any atom or molecule. The polymer formed is an exact multiple of the number of monomers undergoing polymerization. Okay, this polymerization, this type of polymerization can be catalyzed either by heat or light or pressure. This type of polymerization is catalyzed by heat, light or pressure. That here in this case the degree of polymerization is very high. In the case of addition polymerization, a large, very large number of molecules, monomers join together to form a very high molecular weight polymer. Okay, a large number of molecules join together. So since a very large number of molecules are joining together to form a polymer, okay, so we say that the degree of polymerization is very high. Okay, this reaction also occurs very fast. In this polymerization, okay, long linear chain like polymers are formed without any cross linkages between different polymer chains. Long linear and chain like polymers are formed without any cross linkages between different polymer chains. This reaction also occurs very fast. It can be catalyzed by heat, light or by applying pressure, or even in the presence of, it can also be done in the presence of acids and bases. Dilute acids and base also catalyze this addition polymerization. Okay, these are some of the characteristics of this addition polymerization. Example, polyethylene is formed by addition polymerization of ethylene under high pressure and temperature. When ethylene, that is C2H4 or CH2 double bond CH2, that's called as ethylene. We have seen this structure. Okay, when ethylene, here also we have given you the monomer ethylene. When monomer ethylene is subjected to very high pressure and high temperature, okay, it undergoes polymerization. Okay, it undergoes polymerization to give rise to a very large molecule called polymer. Okay, when two monomers, two ethylene molecules join together, it's called as a dimer. If three molecules join, it's called as a trimer. If a large number of monomers join together, okay, it gives rise to a polymer called polyethylene. Here CH2 is taken, the monomer unit is taken in the bracket. Okay, a subscript of N is written. Here N corresponds to more than 10,000 units. Okay, more than 10,000 units are joined together. Okay, this process is called as addition polymerization, and by subjecting ethylene monomer to very high temperature and pressure, it is turning into a polyethylene, a polymer. Okay, all these polymers are long linear and chain like polymers without any cross linkages. Another example is the formation of polyvinyl chloride. In ethylene, if we replace one hydrogen with a chlorine atom, okay, we get what we call as vinyl chloride. Its formula is CH2 double bond CHCl, that is vinyl chloride. Okay, a large number of these vinyl chloride, Okay, these large number of these vinyl chlorides join together, okay, join together to give rise to a polyvinyl chloride, commonly called as PVC, okay, commonly called as PVC, okay, in the presence of either heat or light or high pressure, or even in the presence of free radical catalyst like hydrogen peroxide, okay, or benzoyl peroxide can be used to catalyze this reaction to form polyvinyl chloride from vinyl chloride, okay, polyvinyl chloride from vinyl chloride. Homo and copolymers. In the Asian polymers itself, the polymers formed can be divided into homopolymers and copolymers. Polymers with the same kind of monomer units are called as homopolymers. Example is polyvinyl chloride. If the polymers are made from two or more different types of monomers, they are called as copolymers. Okay. Example is polyethylene co-vinyl acetate. Here ethylene is polymerized with vinyl acetate, so you will get a polyethylene co-vinyl acetate. Likewise, polyacrylonitrile co-styrene co-butadiene. Okay, here acrylonitrile, that is acrylonitrile, where one hydrogen of ethylene is replaced by cyanide group, it's called as acrylonitrile, is combined with styrene. Styrene is vinyl benzene, and butadiene, okay, butadiene 4 carbon unit with alternate double bonds and single bond, okay. So these three, vinyl nitrile, styrene and butadiene, they are polymerized together to give rise to a polyacrylonitrile co-styrene co-butadiene. So polymer having made up from different kinds of monomers is called as copolymer. Okay, summary, let us say summarize what we have learned in this. Okay, most of the products we use daily are plastics, they are all polymers. Polymers are made up of small units called monomers. Polymerization is joining of monomers. Degree of polymerization is the number of monomer units. Okay, number of monomer units present in a given polymer is called as degree of polymerization. Unsaturated monomers contain double bonds. Functional monomers contain reactive functional groups. Okay, additional polymerization is formed by unsaturated monomers. No, here during polymerization no molecules are removed. It's a fast process. High molecular weight polymer is formed. Examples of additional polymerization are polyethylene, PVC, etc., polystyrene, etc. Okay, homopolymer contains same kind of monomer units. Copolymer contains 2 or 3 different kind of monomer units. Okay, which of the following is a synthetic polymer? PVC is a synthetic polymer. Silk, jute, leather, they are all natural polymers. Polyvinyl chloride PVC is a synthetic polymer. Okay, unsaturated monomer is CF2. Okay, tetrafluoroethylene it is called as it is among the examples given and the questions given, that is the only unsaturated monomer because of the double bond. Okay, degree of polymerization is number of units, number of monomer units. Okay, that is called as degree of polymerization. Okay, frequently asked questions from this topic are: what is a polymer? What do you mean by polymerization? Mention types of polymers. Define additional polymerization. Explain with an example. Write the characteristics of additional polymerization. What is degree of polymerization? What are homo and polymers? Explain with examples. These are all some of the questions that can be asked. Okay. Thank you for listening to the lecture.